you will get like these awful answers on journalists that fact check their content before broadcasting and things like that. That it's like a really old definition of it, as fact checking wasn't defined as like one specialization of journalism. This is an important point, and I think a lot of you had like the same questions, because you thought that journalists were different from fact checkers. Usually fact checkers are journalists, and it's like, for example, if you hear about data journalist, a science journalist, you can be specialized in fact checking. And most of journalists in newsrooms are most of fact checkers in newsrooms are are journalists, but not only. For example, I don't know, in Malita we have a mathematician, a biologist, and things like that, that now are fact checkers, because at the end, a lot of the work of fact checking, it goes uh, on dissemination and on doing like the correct process of and methodology of investigation. There is like this first base of what fact checkers do and what they have to follow, and this, I think, it's one of the main differences between journalists. Fact checkers have like a lot of rules. We have methodologies, we have rules on transparency, on ethics, and things like that. And journalists, even we have like a code of ethics and the things. The process is not always the same. For example, if you do an article, like a regular article, you can go and interview two people and then write about what you saw, what you think, and what the experts told you. But you don't have to be totally close to to facts and to data. And at the end, you fact checkers usually do like the opposite of the process. It's like something is published and we go and investigate, and on the other side, journalists usually go and search for a new topic and investigate about it. So there is the International Fact Checking Network. I think a lot of you know about it. This is like the first organization that like tried to gather fact checking organizations a few years ago, and the one that defines the rules that most of the fact checking organizations currently in the world follows. Even then, I will talk about the European fact checking standards network, that it's recent and like put like a higher line on these standards. So um, the one of the most important ones of the rules that I was talking to you about is non-partisanship. It's important that your organization and you as a fact checker um, are not compromised to any um, politics, party, or whatever. The second one, it's fairness. That I know this is a huge concept. I will change it on my screen to go beyond this. Then we have to be transparent on how we choose the sources and how we quote that sources and how we use that sources. So all the organizations have that. All the organizations that have the badge of the IFCN. This is really important. I think if you want to use if a fact checking organization as a source for your investigation, for your projects and whatever, please notice that at least they have the badge of the IFCN, because this is like a quality assessment. All the organizations apply to the IFCN badge once a year, and they go into this like audit process. So it's a good thing to have, and it's what you can uh, take a look at if you want to see if it's a good fact checking organization. Then transparency of funding. This is really important because fact checking organizations are always targeted on who fact check the fact checker and things like that. So all the organizations that have the IFCN badge needs to say needs to be totally open and public on who they get their money from and how they pay for their operations. So this is the other one. Then I will go there afterwards to the methodology, because it requires like a whole space on methodology. And the other one is corrections policy. This is a thing that changed some from regular media outlets. Usually, for example, if you see regular media outlets, they I don't know, they publish and afterwards they see they had a paragraph that had a mistake, they just change it. And they don't let their users, their readers to know they change or they made a mistake, or sometimes they just delete an article they publish. This is a thing fact checkers don't do. Or every fact checking organization has a correction policy. For example, in Marita's case, if we change something that changed the whole sense of the title, for example, we put there an asterisk and let our users know. If we just change like a phrase or a number or whatever that don't change the whole concept of the article, you go there are a lot of annotations in the end. We try not to use the correction policy, but sometimes we have to do it as we are humans. um I will, you can go into this link that I, yeah, please, Kinga.
If I may just add, Jimena, I'm so sorry for
No, don't
disrupting,
worry.
that I think it's important to state here that, from my point of view, the fact checkers give facts, not opinions. So what we do is, readers can form their own opinions based on facts. I think, the great example would be the more symmetric approach to the problem, and this is why not always the journalists are fact checkers.
Yeah. With this that Kinga said, I don't know if you, in journalism, there were like trends. One of the trends of some years ago, it was data journalism, and the idea was like you have to use databases, numbers, whatever, to get into some conclusions and to find stories and things like that. But the idea is that any citizen can get into the same conclusion that you had before. So it's the same with fact checking. Every reader, every user should be able to repeat the same process and get to the same conclusion. So that's why you will see some articles that are really long, because we explain like all the step by step thing on how we do it. It's like journalism doing a journalist doing a step by step guide on how they got into the title of that. So and Kinga, please, if you need to add anything or whatever, go on. It's really valuable. And if anyone has a question or whatever, please just also jump into the call. Um, Okay, methodologies. Methodologies usually, this will be also addressed on the 6.2 deliverable on the state of art and methodologies of fact checking organizations. This is like a general thing. The methodologies are divided like in different parts. The first one, it's how we select what to debunk. This is important because this is a thing that Ricardo already asked and that will be addressed later in the part of challenges. And it's, are we biased on what we select, on how we decide what to fact check? Um, in the case of Maldita, for example, and I invite Kinga to explain afterward how they do it, we have like two criteria, virality and pelligrosity. Virality, we have some quantitative numbers of if something is viral or not, but we also jump in with editorial criteria when we think that human lives are in risk. Um, but what we see, for example, can be biased by our circle, our context, and whatever. So this is one of the main challenges, and every organization had have like a different criterion here. Then, how to debunk? This is complicated. In our case, we use primary sources. Primary sources are usually official sources, government, whatever, and this change a lot on countries that don't have trustful public institutions. For example, the government cannot be your primary source in that cases. So this change a lot according to context. And the I'm also sharing my screen in here. We use a lot of tools, and this is also another challenge we will talk about later. This is what Malita called the toolbox. We use different tools for fact checking photos, for fact checking videos, searches on the internet, searches on social media, how to see climate things, for example. And you can, this is like every part has a summary on how we use each one of the tools, so users can also use the same thing. But the thing with this is that we depend on a lot of free um, free tools, and that's a problem. Most of our organizations don't have money to pay for pay tools. So as you will see on that toolbox that I just shared, and here you have the link on the presentation. Most of them are free and open to use, and that's why we work a lot, for example, with OSINT communities, because they know how to use that open tools. And um, this also make us change a lot on how on the methodologies, because if we got one tool closed, we have to search for another one that does the same, but we don't have to pay for it. I don't know if Kinga want to jump on this, but this is like a really important challenge. You have noticed that with Twitter, for example, lately, or with archive things, that usually we use free things, but those free things sometimes delete the content we upload and things like that. Then each one of the organizations have different edition or validation process. In the case of Maldita, for example, we have a process that we call Palante, that it's basically our editors on the newsroom, they have like a right to vote. So every debunk before being published has to go into that group with all the editors, and until you have 7 votes, there are the palante votes, you cannot publish. So it's, if someone rejects your debunk, it goes back and you have to review until it's totally perfect. Well, almost perfect, because we don't totally have perfect things usually. It goes out. This changed a lot, and it depends on the resources of the organization, on how many editors you have, on the process that you have. But it almost all the time has an edition process. Then the sources policy I was talking to you about before, and then there is like the stamps on how we qualify each one of the debunks. In some cases, these are Maldita's stamps, what we use right now. One it's false, the other one it's like it's not false, but there is no evidence that it's true. And the other one is what we know, that it's basically a format that we started using when things started getting more complicated every time. We talk about this on some meetings before. Basically, we cannot say all the content is false all the time. We need to like just say we know this and we know this about this topic, so it can stop spreading this information. But we cannot totally target a thing, qualify a thing as false. So it mm, depending on the time, we use it more and more, and this depends on the organization. Some organizations have more different more types of how they quantify, how they qualify, sorry, this information. And this is only for debunks. I will get into this right now, that I think it's really important for us at this point. It's to know the different types of things that fact-checking organizations does. One is the debunk, that what I was talking about before. This is like a regular disinformation. What is regular disinformation? Bananas are the food you have to eat if you don't want to get COVID. That's like usual information. We do a debunk for that, but depending on your organization, for example, Maldita, we also have a methodology for science content. Why science contents go into a different methodology? Because science, it's like a thing that moves. So one thing that we believe now is a fact, then another study or whatever can change it. So that's why we have a different methodology for science, and each one of the organizations have it different. So we have science and we have debunks methodology, and this is like the main methodology of the organization. But then we also have a methodology for political discourse. This is like a different type of content for fact checking organizations. One is like, for example, we got an image that says, or a voice note that it's there is a bomb threat, for example. That goes into usual debunks. But then a politician gave an interview in the morning in the radio, and they say like three, four, five false claims. We can take that false claims and review it and say like what the politician said in the morning, the radio was false. In Malita, we almost don't do it that anymore because we felt that it was really complicated and it takes a lot of resources to take our journalists to do active listening. Basically, we cannot hear every politician in every interview, in every radio station, in every TV channel, whatever, every morning. So we can be like not at all biased on what we fact check. So we only do that when things get viral now. But for example, in the case of demagogue, this is different. I don't know if Kinga want to explain this. They do a lot of more political discourse fact checking, and this is like another type. The qualifications that you give to that, it's different. How you verify that, it's different. For example, in our methodology, we give 24 hours to the politicians to answer. We give them the right to answer before publishing, so it's really more slow than usual fact check. um, and then the other one is explainers. More and more we do a lot of explainers, that it's not only the other format that I talk you about, that it's what we know, but things that we think it could be disinformation at some point. We do like these totally explainer topics. Like I don't know if you were looking to. I'm trying to think on an example, but they are like journalistic articles, but really simpler, with simple titles, with um, a summary of the keys and things on things that are started, maybe can be viral but are not that viral, so users can have the information when they look at Google before believing that. Then the parts of a debunk. This is important. On the parts of a debunk, you have a title. Usually, this is like the usual structure, but each one of the organizations have it different. For example, Elenica has this really divided, that it's a cool thing for scraping, for example. In our case, it's not that close, but it's like there is an structure. One is the title. In the title, we usually have different title formulas according if it's totally false, if it's what we know, if it's a no evidence. It has like different structures on the title. Um, then we have like a summary of the most important points of what people needs to get into their minds, even if they don't read the full article, they have to get an idea of why it's false. So usually there is like the summary, and then the article. On the article, there is one important part, which we usually include the original content that we are debunking. It's really important to include the image, the video, the screenshot of the video, and things like that, so people can remember. Um, it it's not good to have just an article without those references, because people usually see an image that it's false, and if they try to remember the same image, they will get the match. But if you don't include that in your article, people won't know what you are talking about and why they are reading that debunk. So this is important. And the other important part is that we usually safeguard identity or personal data. This is a question we always get, because basically people that share this information, usually it's not the one that created, and most of them are not bad people that want to just see the world on fire, but they are people that believe on this information and the misinformation, and they just share it without any bad intention. So we usually like, for example, if that it's a Twitter user that shared that content, but it's not like a common disinformation guy or whatever, we just like blur the username and things like that, so they are not targeted also. And this is important, and this is also valuable for you when you think about, for example, scraping content from fact checkers. You usually won't get that source because with lore and things like that. And also, for example, with the original content, we usually don't publish the original content without a stamp, without a blur, because that way we avoid this to continue being distributed from us. We just like put that stamp, so the original content is not that original and it stops being distributed. What Kinga was saying, that it's that every reader, user, whatever, should be able to repeat the process and get to the same conclusion. So it's this step by step, and all the evidence and tools to get to the conclusions should be provided to the reader or users. This is really different from what media outlets do. For example, for SEO reasons, a lot of media usually don't put hyperlinks or quote to other websites where they take the information to other studies, to other things. Fact checkers do that because we feel like you have to have all the information to make your own decision, um, not only what we say. So we usually provide with all the sources that we use to write the article. Um, yes, Kinga.
If I may just jump on and say that the only problem when it comes to sourcing is when you have, for example, the real information behind the paywall. And this is what was also mentioned in Brussels, that the problem of the information in 2023 is that good informations are behind the paywalls and the false informations are free of charge, since they're making money on it in different ways. So we try to provide this knowledge to our readers or users uh, somehow, just by respecting the paywalls, but on the other hand, by providing this data. So this is the huge deal for people who would be, for example, scrapping our websites, since sometimes you may find the paid sources. So in this way, you have to just somehow think about how you can access the source, or I wouldn't say just override it, but just get the access to that.
Yeah, this is, we are all the time searching for things like that, bots on Telegram, extensions on Chrome, and things like that to get behind those paywalls, because we cannot pay for everything, usually. The European fact-checking code of principles. This is like the line our target group it's working right now. This project is for European organizations mainly, so this should be the line that we use to see if the fact checkers we are working with are okay. In our case, we are being validating. I think Edenica, Demagoga, and Maldita are on the process right now because this is really new. But what I would recommend to you is that you read this document. I already include the link in here because it will be really valuable for you to see what we need to be like a certified fact checker by the EFCSN. It's a complicated process, it's a really extensive process because everything about our organizations is being audited. It's being audited by external assessors that will have to follow all these rules that you will see on this 30 pages document. So I won't go into all of it. I will just go into the main points of it, but I really recommend you to read it. So here, this is really important, and this I you see that I put on black letters the public interest thing. This is like the main requirement of being able to apply to for the fact checking code of principles. The topics you have to work on are the topics related to public interest. Public interest is also defined on the code, but it's basically if you are not doing things related to public interest, you are not doing fact checking. So um, then you are as the same as the IFCN. You need to be clear and transparent on the methodologies. and how you select the issues and how you investigate the issues you select. Um, how this is being assessed. The organizations basically take their methodologies that should be public on their webs, and they say this is the process I follow, and they have to explain with some examples of articles and whatever how they follow the methodology. But then the assessors can take random debunks on your website and say, okay, I will go and repeat the same process they have to do, and they have to get into the same conclusions as you. So this is a complicated process that we have to complete, and you have to be totally consistent on your work, because if someone doesn't follow on one, this assessor will say this they are not doing things right. The same on non-partisanship and impartiality, it's basically the same. Then because of Europe, we have a part on privacy and safety. This is really important currently, because on how fact checking is being targeted, and all the parts related to social media and things like that. And this is a thing that the IFCN code doesn't have. The honest corrections, it's basically the same, but this part, it's like a new line on how transparent we should be. And on the IFCN code, you have to say who paid to you, but know how much money you get paid for, and there is some limits on what should you should report on whatever. On the part of the FCSN, on the funding part, for example, if you get more than 5,000 euros or 1% of your organization, it's being funded by this specific donor, for example, you have to be transparent on it. You have to comply on conflicts of interest. So, for example, if you get money of someone that it's in your board, or if you get money of someone that it's related to a politician or things like that, you have to be transparent on that. And the other part that it's added it now, it's on partnerships and agreements. This is a figure that fact checkers uses a lot. So, for example, I made an agreement with no, I will put an example that it's not related to that. Google gives to nonprofits 10,000 euros a month on Google Ads and things like that, just for being a nonprofit. Usually, this wasn't disclosed by fact-checking organizations because on the IFCN rules, this ask you to do it because even if it's not money, you are being related to some organizations that you can be compromised to. So we also have to explain that right now. Um, please get into this. Now, like the first organizations that already got the code, that are already approved by EFCSN has been like in the last 1 or 2 months, and some of them are being assessed on the second part of it. This will be like the standard for Europe, so it's really important to have it clear. On the code of standards, you will have definitions of a lot of things that you can read. Right now, the EFCSN has like a governance body that it's like an independent, that the white group that is formed by more than 50 organizations around Europe voted for, and there is a lot of people really that are really investing their time in here. Um, and now on challenges. Give me a second. I will change here. Okay, challenges. Fact checking take a lot of resources and time, and this is a thing that Ricardo always asks me to talk about. Fact checking it's slow. Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. But why it takes a lot of resources and time? Because we need a lot of people working on it. You cannot be an expert on everything. So our newsroom have like different profiles. It requires a lot of work effort, a collaborative effort. Sometimes we have to debunk things that are not happening in our country, that experts are not available, and things like that. So it's really different. There are things that are really easy to debunk, and you see that, I don't know, manipulated image. You can see that it's manipulated, then you add some context and whatever, and you have a debunk. But for example, with the things on France last week, you can take a look at it. We are now we're using a new format that basically, when we are like not being able to totally debunk something, we are saying like, we know this is false, we know this is false, but we need this and this information. Can you help us? And we are asking our community to help us. So this allow us to save time and to use other people knowledge. Um, Small fact checking organizations cannot make, I don't know, more than 1 2 debunks per day. Some of the times they don't debunk a thing on daily basis because they don't have enough resources to do it. Then we have a lot of dependence on the free technological tools or sources I was talking to you about, um, that we don't control. So, for example, we have an amazing tool that searches for images on maps and whatever. This was free today, and we have been using this for months. But tomorrow they start charging for it. Um, we cannot do anything more. If they start charging for it, we just lose the access to it. If you are a big fact checking organization and you can pay for it, you are okay. If not, you lose the access and a tool that you specialize on, for example. So this is important, and I think it's important for what we are designing on this project, as we should include some things that are not dependent in others. Then distrust on the word fact checking, that it's the same on the political use of the word fake news. For example, on the side of fake news, we don't use the word fake news anymore. It's a word that politicians basically use to target journalists, to target fact checkers, um, and basically because the theory says that if it's news shouldn't be false, so we shouldn't like add the word news to fake. This also add distrust to media, so we try not to use it. We use misinformation, disinformation, whatever word hoax, but not that one. The distrust on the word fact checking, it's more and more big every time, basically because people don't like to be target on saying, hey, this is false, you believe this is false. And because fact checking organizations are being targeted by politicians that don't like to be targeted because of negationist groups and things like that. So we need, there is no word at this point to change it, but we need to address that as one of the challenges that we have to face. There is another common thing that it's always been said, that it's fact checking doesn't work. There is several and several studies that we can share and that most of you can have already seen, that fact checking works, and have positive effects on citizens. There is a myth on backfire effect, that it's basically fact checkers giving more space um, to false narratives, instead of by they saying this is false, they are giving more space to false narratives. This is not true. It's already um, showed that fact checking basically allows people like to vaccine themselves. So if you already see a debunk of a thing that haven't reached to you, you will be already be vaccinated to that kind of disinformation. I can share this document for you. It's basically some argumentary on studies and things like that that debunk this idea of fact checking doesn't work. And the other thing, it's fact checking organizations are more are about more than just fact checking. This is really important for you to have in mind. Fact checking organizations does a lot of things. We create technology, we do media literacy things, not just for journalists, also for citizens. We do a lot of advocacy, for example, a lot of lobby. We work on research with universities. So this is really important. We most of us don't just debunk things. We are involved in a lot of things, and a lot of debunks are not even things that you thought about. We are being debunked. For example, Maldita's 20% of daily job, 25%, it's on scams. We do a lot of work on people on scams, people getting SMS, people getting emails on things that they click on and they get steal of their money, of their data. We do a lot of work on that, that it's not related to politics, it's not related to science. It's just like a public service. And I think that it's important that you have in mind that that's our main mission. We do a public service for people to take informed decisions. Um, and this goes beyond this line. It's like there is like a politics line, cultural discussion and things like that. Most of the people, it's not in this line. On our Twitter line, for example, that it's a lot of journalists, politicians, people from the cultural world, academics having discussions. Most people doesn't have time for that. People, it's on their daily basis. They got into TikTok, they see 10 minutes, half an hour of videos, and most of them are about whatever, and those things already also have this information. So I don't know, there are things saying a K-pop band, a guy from a K-pop band, it's Princess Diana, for example. That's this information, and you don't, and you and we don't have to feel that we are debunking stupid things. We are debunking things that people believe in. And just by being able to notice that things are disinformation, you are showing people that they have to be alert. You are giving them media literacy things, because you are giving them help to identify possible disinformation and things that are more serious. But things, this information change decisions, and these decisions goes from, can I buy on the store in front of my house, or where I take my kids to school. So when you get into our databases, from all of us, you will see that there are really crazy things. We have a debunk on, uh, you can get pregnant for a fly to, if a fly gets to you and it's a type of fly, you can get pregnant for that. People believe that. I don't know. Discussions are really more simple in some cases than what we thought. Then Ricardo asked me to talk some about pre-bunking. I know a lot of you have heard this word. It's like, can we get to debunk things before they are viral? Can we identify this information or possible disinformation before it explodes? Because a lot of people think as fact checkers as a goalkeeper. We take some balls, we let others to pass on because we don't have time, we don't have resources and things like that. I think it's possible. This is my totally personal opinion, but not as some people it's using the word pre-bunking. Some of you have noticed that YouTube few months ago launched a study that they did with some Ivy League universities in the United States and whatever, and they say that pre-bunking was basically to add some advertisement before videos on YouTube that explain people about cognitive things, or media literacy things that they have to learn before being exposed to this information. Because you can be exposed to this information on YouTube, and if you tell people just be alert about A, B, and C, people will do it. This study basically shows some good results on the beginning of the people that they try it, but then people starts like jumping the advertisement, and those things don't apply to all disinformation cases. So we are trying to think about debunking not as this is media literacy, and we have all done media literacy all the time, and it's okay. They, that tools are okay, and it's perfect for platforms and whatever to start providing media literacy resources to their users. But we think that we have to go beyond that, and that's why we are also excited on this project, that it's trying to predict what can make this information viral, what attracts people, and whatever. So this is a thing that we can talk about for this project, how we can uh, see specific details that can make a thing this information. And I think that with that, I finish, and will be here, and also I think Kinga it's here if you have questions or whatever. Yeah, Cristina, please. You are muted, Cristina.
You're right. This is one of the best presentations I've ever had on this very broad topic, which links, you are very right to link media literacy with fact checking and disinformation because it's all a big framework. And I would like to ask a couple of questions. First of all, as a media, do you think that there are trainings or certifications or something that could upgrade our company, not just the journalists, but even ourselves, in acquiring a recognition that we are fact checkers, or that we don't do disinformation, or that we carry out proper? And second point is, do you think that the project, I mean, AI for Trust, can also has a chapter that will become operational also for companies in the future?
Okay, this is complicated. There are a lot of initiatives trying to put like this stamp, what we have with the FCSN, what we have with the IFCN, to media companies.
Yeah.
For example, there is JTI, and is the Journalism Trust Initiative. It's being managed by Reporters Without Borders in
Ah,
France.
yeah. Yeah.
Then there is like the Trust Initiative that some big media outlets have. There is also another initiative made by Adobe, the Photoshop
Oh, Adobe.
company
Oh,
and
okay.
whatever, because they want, but it's really complicated because none of them are focused on content. So basically, it's like, for example, JTI, they give you like this stamp because you follow transparency rules, because you have a corrections policy, but this is being audited by consultancy companies, like huge consultancy companies that don't get into your journalistic content. So even you haven't stamped, it doesn't mean that sometimes you create this kind of disinformation, but as being a media company. So you don't have methodology, you don't have process. So it's like a complicated thing. It's a good thing to have this kind of stamps, but we feel like content should be assessed in order to feel, because on paper there are a lot of media companies that feel right. So for example, I don't know, here there is a right wing extremist media outlet that really just disseminates this information, but in paper they should be able to get this kind of a stamp because they have, they say who pay their money for, they have a board, they are a legal entity, so they fulfill the requirements, but not on the content part because they just publish this information. And on how to get a certification as a fact checker, this is a complicated thing. There are some master degrees. There are companies that, I don't know, hire Maldita or hire whatever fact checker for getting their companies some courses. So, for example, we have worked with Disney or with Orange or like big organizations like that that put their employees on some courses with us. But there is nothing like close for people outside journalism work. So, yeah, that's basically my answer. King, I don't know if you want to add something to that.
Oh, no, not exactly to what you said. I wanted to just bring up another topic, so maybe I'll let you finish.
Could I just add, sorry guys, could I just add that for the intent and purposes of the Commission policies and recommendations, perhaps we could also set out some, well, some minimum requirements or our own requirements within the project. I think the Commission is maybe expecting standards and parameters.
Yeah, I think the EFCSN standards and parameters are a good start. There is also the code, the disinformation code that the platform signed. last year, the new code that we can use as dark. I don't I don't know. This is I will open the discussion for later. If this project should address that, but I think it should address what sources we use for. That's a thing on how we qualify what we are training with our tool and things like that. But I will also leave Ricardo for this question. Um, and Kinga, if you want to jump in.
Yeah,
And
thank you so much, Jimena, for this perfectly summing up basically everything in the presentation. I just wanted to add because right now there is a huge discussions covering the media literacy. There's lots of organizations that try to, for example, provide media literacy classes, and there's a lot of researchers who try to cover the mis and disinformation topics without having the basic knowledge about fact checking or without even doing the fact checking. So I just wanted to point out that there's also, in the meantime, a lot of discussions like whether the fact checkers are useful, if we should be just like other journalists under the press law, for example, in Poland, etc. So yeah, I just want to stress out that our work is, as you saw in Jimena's presentation, is so different than the normal journalists or researchers that it's not that easy just to give your emotions or for example, what you endorse by, I mean, political side, to just push it back of your head and do the um, perfectly fact-based article. So when it comes, for example, to media literacy class, Maldita or Demagog, we are, I don't know, I would say entitled to do such a classes since we are working with that every day. And when it comes to certification, like by IFCN or EFCSN, it happens every year by IFCN. And even we, as organization who is in IFCN since 2019, we have feedback what we should improve every year and every year. So this is the type of job when you are constantly developing yourself, you are working with others, also with other organizations, as you can see here. And I think that researchers should be more, for example, focused how fact checkers do their job, not only talk theoretically, and also people who provide media literacy classes, since as I mentioned, we also do that in Demagog. And I have lots of feedback that, okay, I had some media literacy class with some other guys, but there it was not compared to what you did, since it was so different because they were not into practical things. So, yeah, I just wanted to stress out these things. Thank you.
Marcelo, please.
Yes, thanks, Jimena, for the nice presentation. So I have another question that is, if you want more, for us technical guys here. So I realized that you use many times the words disinformation and misinformation. So the question will be for me to understand a little bit better what is the difference and when you use either of the two, because I'm not actually into this much. So thanks.
Give me a second. I will share my screen because I just use an image
I
from
will
first draft that is really good.
Yeah, I
uh,
just wanted to send you the link right now from
yeah,
the
I
first
will share
draft,
my screen
literally.
right now. Give me a second. Uh, these differences doesn't exist in Spanish. This is really important. In Spanish, we just have desinformación, but in English, we have like this brand of words, and it's really good to use it. So, give me a second here. Um, here, I think you see it right now. Wait, now. Okay, it's misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, and basically the thing is that, yeah, here Kinga has the link. It's the intention behind it. This information, it's deliberately fabricated. Misinformation is unintentional. It's like a mistake, and malinformation, it's affecting like directly one institution, one public, and whatever. and it's a change of context. So, for example, the idea of it's like you target with malinformation. It's like you want to make damage to an individual or to an organization. With disinformation, it's like in general for a topic, and misinformation, it's like I just made a mistake and I created a false claim, but it wasn't intentional. Yeah. Also, what Ricardo said, that's really good. So, yeah, I don't know if with this is more clear, but I can also share with you this document with a presentation on why fact checking work. There is a lot of studies in there that talk about this also.
Thanks.
Someone else, any question, comment, need, request, or whatever? Yeah, Marco.
Maybe I lost the passage. Are you going to share those slides? Because they are very interesting. I can share
Yeah,
with.
yeah, I created this presentation for this, so I will share the presentation, and there is also the recording. And in the presentation, you have some links also.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, Georgios.
Hi, I was wondering if it is possible to have some more details on the selection process, how you select an article in order to be debunked, whatever, and actually how you analyze the document. What is the process of analyzing the document and selecting the appropriate tools in order to apply and get to a conclusion?
Yeah, this will be
Using
really detailed on the state of art report that we are going to explain. I can talk about Maldita's case. This is our methodology that is published on our website. You can use the translator also to see it. But basically, we have like two criteria. One is virality. In our case, virality, the first measure that we use is that we got a report from our community more than 10 times in 1 hour. With that, we are forced to assign a fact checker to work on it, even we don't know if it's false or not. In some cases, for example, last week we had like some videos of friends, of all the crises in France, that were true and were totally true and whatever, but we had until we knew that they were true and the context of it and whatever, we lost a lot of time of our fact checkers for an article that we usually don't publish. In this case, we publish it because it was really viral and we need people to have an answer because they were sharing with us because they thought it was false. And the other criteria is probably it's dangerous. Yeah, basically, if there are human lives at risk, this happens on terrorism. Situations on natural disasters, violence, things on security, things on health, this goes into our editorial criteria completely. So if we see something on social media, so for example with MMS, that it's like this magic medicine that kills people, but they said that COVID it's going to cure you, even it's not that viral on us. We think that people should have the information because if they bring that, they will be they will die. We do a lot of articles on that. Then this change according the organizations. This is our criteria. We are going to make like this summary on the criteria of other organizations and how they select that. And on the process is really different according to the content we got. So for example, if it's an image, that it's an image that, for example, it's an image on a context, yo que- I don't know, a bomb explosion on somewhere. Usually what we do, the first part is that we use reverse image from Google and we go there and see if it was an old image, for example, or if we see if it's an image that it's being shared that it happens in Spain, but we find that it was on Israel, for example. So this depends on every fact checker process and how they treat each one of the things. For example, in bid, in the case of videos, should usually it's like the first thing we do. Reverse image from Google if it's a case of the image. Um, if we find something, for example, a voice note or whatever, we search on Twitter, we search on Google to see if someone else have already published, and we have some like clues. But the idea is like to find clues. That's the first step on all the tools that we have available for free. Yeah, Manuel. I don't know if this answers because it's complicated. This
Actually,
not process.
yeah, I was hoping more to discuss about the text. If you have a text article, okay, not an image and not a video, and something is written and needs validation, what is the process there?
When we are going to publish the article,
There is a fake news article, okay, that has
okay,
written by a media and goes viral.
this is really complicated. We, in the case of on our case, specific case, this is not like the main case. We use it happens sometimes, but it's like the small amount of all the cases that we debunk. It's one of them. Um, it's the same process. If it's an article, we go and look for data, for evidence, primary sources. So, for example, this happens a lot with um, violence cases, for example, on migration things. This happens a lot. It's like a guy from Morocco killed a woman in the street and whatever. So we call the police and say, hey, this is true. Can you verify to us, whatever? And this is like the first step. Go into primary sources that are journalistic primary sources. But this doesn't happen a lot. It's like articles are not like news articles are not the common format of what we debunk. I don't know if this, for example, it's different on Poland or things like that. But in the case of Spain, it's like that. Yeah, Emmanuel.
Hello. Thank you very much, Jimena. My question has to do with AI for trust. Where does it fit in somehow? Because you could imagine that it contributes to the platform, and then other people, seek out the platform to check news, and therefore, in many ways, indirectly, they seek out your uh, fact-checking organizations. And is there some kind of circularity in this, or is this not relevant as a question? Or how does AI for Trust see this over time?
I think Marco or Ricardo will be better to answer you about this.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I understood the question. So, like, in AI4TRUST is you see the toolbox part of Jimena's Maldita's webpage. They are basically, yeah, here they have a set of tools, and they have it inside their basically the normal work use case. And we are making something similar. We hope we're making something better. And at the same time, we are trying to support them in the way they identify the news to the bank, because they are at the moment they rely on their community. They are also very lucky on having like an active community that basically pushes interesting news to them. But in our case, we will have like we'll be scouting automatically the social news media to identify what is like to suggest what has to be debunked. I don't know if this answered your question.
It is beginning to answer it, because this means that there is a selection process that is specific to AI for trust. And that selection process just then brings in Maldita or Demagogue or other fact-checking association organization when needed. That's what you mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I didn't know about this step, which is quite important, because once the platform is actually turned into a platform that is available to the public, then the question is what fact-checking organization do you bring in? Thank you.
Yeah, and this is in our package 3, the task is called the disinformation warning system. And what we are learning for interacting with the fact checkers is that basically that tool should obey to their ethical standards.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Marco?
Yes, I have a more general question. In your presentation, I didn't really see or perceive the next steps of all your work. That is to say, you say, oh, look, there is a viral misinformation article. We should intervene. But actually, to my understanding, the intervention is let's write a debunking article or a fact-checking article, not intervening, doing social correction on social media. So my question is, since this is part of our work for countering, generation countering, my question is, from the literature, it seems that this is something that is not done by fact checkers, but more by normal users. Do people in your community do this? Do fact checkers would like to do this if they have the tools that allow them to do this in an efficient way? Answer
Okay,
on social media, let's say, or on WhatsApp and
we do it at some kind. The ones, the organizations that are part of the third party program of Facebook, we do that actively, not by our mean. It's like Facebook has this platform that targets to us this information that is being distributed on their platform. So if we have an article or we made an article about the list that Facebook is giving us, we like put that link, and Facebook like has its own system that we cannot control, but basically they reduce the distribution of that disinformation. They put like this notification in front of the publication that the user made, saying like independent fact checkers verify this, and they say it's false. Here you can read more about it, and they put it in the front of the disinformation. So this is like the more active program that we are being part of, and not all of the organizations are part of it. It's just some of them. Um, then about
so,
community,
sorry,
this is a thing.
sorry, I interrupt you
Yeah,
1 second. So it's a very, very basic kind of intervention because it's like, look, it's false, read this article. There is no argumentation, explanation why it's false or...
they put like the title of our article, and then they take it out from the platform. So if they click the link, they read it. If not, they don't. um, these have shown like some results. I can share with you some things, but they are like the social media platform that has the more active counter disinformation program currently. Then this depends on how fact checkers manage their community. In our case, for example, one of our more active communities, it's on WhatsApp. So we use this automated chatbot. So if they send us something that it's already debunked, we answer with an article, and we have like a call to action to them. So we ask them to send it to the people that share with them that disinformation. And we have been tracking, like for example, we give them automated answers to 40 users, and then we track like the our Google Analytics and see how many people it's inside the article when we make like that massive answer. And we know that some of them do it because we don't have like 40 views, we have like 2,400 and whatever. So it's people like forwarding our content. um but we are not totally sure that it's just that the reason for that, because WhatsApp traffic cannot be tracked because of the encryption. um, and then, yeah, that depends on how every fact-checking organization manages their community. This is a thing that could be a thing if, I don't know, if we think about a Twitter chat that answers every person that answer their that share that is information. That's a thing we can think about it. For us, I think it would be like a cool thing, but I cannot talk in general.
Okay. But at least we have a scenario we can reason on.
Yeah.
Also because...
Andronico, please.
Okay.
Sorry, Marco, I interrupt you.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Hi. Hi, now we have switched to another matter, but I wanted to offer some comments about how we analyze text articles because we regularly do this probably much more. So to summarize, first of all, we try to find all the variants of an article because in some cases we see half of the claims regarding a subject and in another article another half of the claims or quotes. So we put them all together. Then we check their sources. And in the Greek context, we see regularly that these articles are copied from controversial and conspirational sources from abroad, which may have even more details or comments. So we fact check the original article, not only the Greek version. And the Greek version sometimes has inaccuracies in translation, in details that it mentions. That's why we try to be thorough and check the whole subject. Now, the way we analyze text is we put a lot of emphasis on separate claims because large articles, especially, maybe it's best to take them apart and put the different debunkings in different sections so that a complicated issue can become more understandable for the public. Especially during the pandemic, it was a serious problem. Someone could make like a claim with 5 sentences, whereas we would need to make 5 sections. If we try to make it all together in a few paragraphs, it could be very, very hard to understand. So we try to like highlight the main sections, the main claims that fit in their own section, and sometimes these sentences can be from separate parts of the articles that we fact check, because commonly these articles are very like chaotic. You know, these people write like from their stream of consciousness, as we could say, and sometimes to even make them make sense, we need to put different parts of them together. And then the way we fact check these separate sections, of course, is very different on a case by case scenario. Sometimes, yeah, it's so easy to like make a phone call or send an email to an organization, but in other cases, to be really thorough for especially a scientific matter, you have to check the literature on your own, you have to speak with outside experts, and you have to synthesize all the research process that you have for each separate section. So that is like the gist of it. If you need more details, feel free to ask.
Julia? Thank you, Andronica.
Shall I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for a really excellent seminar. It's been very illuminating and very, very interesting. Two quick things you mentioned, which are to do with challenges. One is the paywall cost challenge, which I think perhaps we need to highlight to the Commission or the PO. And the other question I wanted to ask you concerns what do you do, or what would you envisage happening if you've got the challenge of illegal obstacles, such as in Britain, for example, they're threatening to introduce the online safety bill, and a lot of social media companies are already threatening to leave the UK. And English is kind of an international language for whizzing stuff around the net. Would that affect your work, or would it not matter to you if, say, Signal or Apple or WhatsApp left the UK?
Kinga, do you want to answer this? That I saw your hand, or it's another topic?
It's another topic, really.
No, for Kinga, that I saw her raising her hand, but I don't know if what.
Yes, I wanted to answer to Juliet, since in Poland we had we had an issue about a year and a half ago when one of the political parties' profile on Facebook, like the hard right-wing political party, was banned on Facebook, and there was a huge conversation about fact-checking and the independence of media platforms in Poland. They tried to introduce some new bills, which could lead to restricting, for example, the fact-checking, as it would be seen as the censorship, etc. So we are facing right now a lot of legal problems, like we would be facing if, for example, the political leading party would change in Poland, because they are being they are threatened by us because they are not I don't know, familiar with telling the truth. It sounded hard, but this is a huge problem, and without things like, for example, EFCSN, which shows that European Union is with fact checkers, I think we could face the, for example, problems with fact checking in next years. I'm saying about how it looks in Poland.
Thank you. So that's very, very interesting, and a big warning to the UK as well. But it
Yeah,
does
Juliet,
also
I
raise the question though of what happens when the big players voluntarily decide they're just not going to be active in a big market, which the UK obviously is in terms of international dissemination of media.
I can put
Yes,
you
you're right.
also in touch with Carlos, that he's our public policy director, and he
Thank
has
you.
been in the negotiations with, of the DSA. He's now been on the monitorization of the platforms compiling with the disinformation code, and also on the EFCSN. That what Kinga was saying. He is also a representative for policy in there. So I think he will be like your person to answer this, because I know they have been having conversations about this issue specifically.
Thank you very much.
And I think Georgios, it's your turn.
Yes, it's me again. Sorry.
No, don't worry.
When writing the proposal, we have envisioned three levels of analysis regarding text. The first one was, getting the easy signals, like, if toxic language is used, if clickbait titles are used, if, um, simple signals, like, hate speech. Then the other level of analysis regarding text always is, to identify facts that are not supported by evidence. And the third level of analysis was to somehow try to get some logical fallacies. So since here we have partners that actually, are using text, I would like, to have a methodology from each one of them, the steps they follow when analyzing text, and see, if we can map what was envisioned during the proposal writing, or we need to adapt this, and somehow try to identify, the kind of tools that they actually need from this processing. So I heard Hellenica hoaxes was very interesting, okay, and along these lines. So if anybody else has expertise on text, please share your methodology and the needs of tools to the rest of the consortium.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I can share with you. There is a thing on Telegram groups in the case of Spain and Spanish. I don't know if this happens in other countries. It's like there is a lot of negationist groups in there, and they have like their own language. So for example, if someone suddenly die, a famous person, they call it repentinitis, that it's basically if you get a COVID vaccine and you suddenly die and you are a young person, they target that with being dead by COVID vaccine. And they have like this kind of words. We did like an investigation last year in which we like analyze the words they were using and whatever, and now we don't know how to do it because we are in a lot of more things. But we think that a cool thing to have to predict this information is if the content have the words that are being repeated on those Telegram groups. So creating like a kind of glossary that could be like a characteristic of possible disinformation. And I think that's a thing that we can do, like targeting a specific disinformation groups to see how they talk and what words they use, so we can like have an early warning. So I think if I don't know if Ricardo wants to
No, I
say
just wanted
something.
to say the same thing. So if nobody else has questions, I believe it's been very fruitful and longer than expected seminar. I must thank Jimena for having prepared this so well. So now everybody knows about this in a more comprehensive way. Jimena already shared with me the slides. I will put it in the shared folder somewhere together with the video, and write an email so you can know where it is, so you can also share it with your colleagues who couldn't attend. So thanks again to Jimena, also to Anko and Kinga for participating, and see you next meetings.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a
Bye.
good
Thanks
one.
very
Jimena.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.